KBLA Talk 1580.
Tavis is under attack. I can't get his radio station on my transistor. I'm getting the Asian station that he's right around, but they're not letting KBLA 1580 come in. I'm not getting the black man. So let Tavis know he's under attack. Cyber attack, racist attack, fascist attack, but he's under attack. And they doing something to disrupt his radio station so they won't get the truth out to us.
Hey, it's Tavis. We appreciate all that love, let me tell you, because we may very well be under attack on all sides. Just because you don't believe in conspiracy theories don't mean they ain't after you. But in reality, sometimes stuff happens with the signal from the studio to the tower, which sends our programming to your car, home, office, or your transistor radio. But when you download the KBLA 1580 app, the sound is clear as a bell all day, all night, anywhere in the world, from Los Angeles to Lagos. So we love all of our listeners, no matter how you hear us. But when you download the KBLA 1580 app and hear that richness, you'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner. But don't take my word for it. Download the KBLA 1580 app right now. I'm Tavis Smiley, and I approve this message.
Woke up quick at about noon, just thought that I had to be in Compton soon. I gotta get drunk before the day begins, before my mother starts about my friends. About to go and damn near went blind. Young at the pad throwing up gang signs. Ran in the house and grabbed my clip with the Mac 10 on the side of my hip. Held outside and pointed my weapon. Just as I thought, the fools kept stepping. Jumped in the foe, hit the juice on my ride. I got front and back and side to side. Then I let the Alpine play. Bumping new by NWA. It was gangster at the top of the list. Then I played my old, it went something like this. Cruising down the street in my 6'4", jocking the, slapping the. Went to the park to get the scoop. Knuckleheads out there, cold shooting some hoops. A car pulls up, who can it be? A fresh El Camino rolling Kilo G. He rolled down his window and he started to say, it's all about making that GTA. Cause the boys in the hood are always hard.
Happy birthday, Eric. Easy E's birthday is tomorrow, and I'm celebrating it right now. I'm forcing y'all to celebrate it. This is a LA thing, okay? Yes, indeed. Look, we're doing Freedman Friday for 3 hours today. We're going hard in the paint. And joining me right now, the representative for California's 55th Assembly District, Baldwin Hills, Crenshaw, Culver City, Ladera Heights, and beyond. He is also a long-time activist. He serves as chair of the Committee on Natural Resources, chair of the Select Committee on Poverty and Economic Inclusion, which incredibly is a new committee. And appropriations, government organization, judiciary, and on it goes. Assemblymember Isaac Bryan, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming in. You will show up.
I will always show up.
So, of course, we're following up on the California Legislative Black Caucus actions of this past weekend, where two bills that many of us in the community felt were crucial were killed, meaning they did not get a full floor vote and are gone for now.
And until next session, we're going to come back and we're going to do better. We've got a lot of work to do. This was always a multi-year process, but there's a lot of nuance and a lot of complications, and I'm glad that you're having these conversations. I'm glad community's having these conversations because we've got to demystify the legislative process, right? We've got to make it harder to confuse folks with what's happened so that we can have honest conversations when there are strategic disagreements, because in my opinion, the pathway to our liberation, the pathway to reparations, the pathway to freedom is in solidarity.
And so we're going to clear up some of that stuff today for sure. There was a rather emotional meeting last night, a raucous meeting last night in Leimert Park at the Black Lives Matter LA's Center for Black Power. I was happy to see a lot of folks in attendance, people fired up, and you decided to come.
Yeah, of course I did. Look, I've been organizing a long time. So I got married 2 days ago.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. And, we'd been planning this for 2 years. It's been my ride or die for a very long time. We had to make sure we could balance this political work, the travel, like our real life, and still keep our relationship solid. So definitely checked out for the wedding. And then when I got home, we were going to the pharmacy and I saw it on the corner and checked through my emails and saw that there were invitations sent to legislatures. So the first thing I knew was people are going to get up in there and say that our elected officials are too scared to come or they're too cowardly to come or whatever, right? Because that's what I would have said. When that's not me. And I'm going to show up. And in this case, because I hadn't planned to, showed up with no staff and nobody else and just walked in because I've been in that building many, 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 many times. I knew many, many, many folks in that room. And I thought it was important to show face, whether it's to get yelled at on behalf of the whole caucus. Like, I'll take that.
Which you did.
And I'll take that. You know what I mean? Like that, you got to give folks the outlet to be heard. But also to do my best to try to explain, the strategic disagreements and nuances. I mean, I haven't been in the press because I was off the grid for a short period of time, but there are many, many family conversations that are, spilling out in different places and getting misconstrued. And then there are outsiders coming into, family conversations and injecting, false or created narrative, literally fabricated narratives. And I think we've got to, figure out how we rebuild trust and rebuild communication and rebuild solidarity because we've got a lot of work to do.
Okay, well, you started out saying we're going to do better. And I think that was one of the things people were asking for last night and even this morning is, what's the plan moving forward? I mean, I want to go back and circle back about addressing some of these rumors and what happened on Friday and Saturday. But I want to also start with, like, what is the plan? Like, it's just we're hearing vague things about, oh, well, it will bring it back next time, and people feel like it's not elevated to the level of importance and symbolic sort of historical, magnitude of these two bills.
Right. Well, I mean, and it's bigger than these two bills. I mean, these were the start of a process. The report we were given from the task force was 10 chapters long, hundreds of recommendations. And our commitment as a caucus, my commitment personally, was to handle every single policy recommendation in there. And I think that's where the start of the strategic disagreements began, and that's okay. And these two particular bills, the caucus is going to have immediate conversations about how to reintroduce them, who should reintroduce them, how do we build the solidarity and coalition to make sure that we can get this done, how do we create the conversations and the pressure on the governor to start budget conversations early, because we know his first budget comes out in January. How do we get ahead of this? Not just from the lessons learned at end of session, but the lessons we learned all session long. Folks got to remember this has never been done before anywhere. In the history of California, there's been a couple thousand legislators. There's been less than 100 that are black. I'm the 35th black man to ever serve in the state legislature in either house. And we walked into this, not just me, but my colleagues, and said, look, this reparations report that we've been given is a mandate that we want to follow through on. Every single recommendation in here by the time we're out. And I'm holding true to that. And I think my colleagues are too. I know my colleagues are too. And so we've got to bring these bills back, but we've got to bring back stronger, improved, strategically thoughtful versions of not just these legislations, but other key recommendations that are foundational to build on. Yeah,
I think that there is a lot of recommendations, and two things happened. One, some things that people don't think are reparations were included in that original package of 14.
And in the report.
Some of which I agree with people who don't think that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is these two bills is not because they're tied to a certain person or because of anything else. It's because having an agency and having a funding mechanism are two foundational elements of actually moving forward with not just cash reparations, but any extensive reparations program. So I think that's why we've felt this urgency around those two particular bills.
I think that's absolutely fair. On a personal level, I would have had no problem sending these to the governor. But I think when you're moving in solidarity, not just with your colleagues in Sacramento, but within community, and there are disagreements strategically in different places, you've got to make the best decisions you can. And in this particular instance, there was a decision collectively by majority of the caucus to not move these this year, to fix them.
And by caucus, you mean the California Legislative Black Caucus. Our black lawmakers internally decided not to move these bills forward.
To clean them up, to make them stronger, to fix them, to iron out questions about the administration and last minute amendments, to all of these things. Have more conversations about the veto threats that had been softly suggested back down. I mean, there were conversations in that final week that, final days that none of us, myself in particular, I anticipated. There was, we were cruising to the end of session. I was ready to vote on my final bills and go get married.
Right. And instead you went and got married.
Instead, I flipped my phone off and went and got married anyway, because she deserved that. But it raised a lot of conversation, as it should, and it's done a lot of good as well, and that's why I'm not mad at anybody who is mad. I have many personal feelings as well, but people should also know this is the most progressive Black Caucus California has ever had, and especially with the 4 new members who are hoping come in this November, which we've got to continue to do the work. We will probably lose a member. We'll be down 1, which lessens our collective strength.
11 instead of 12.
That's correct. But the value alignment across members is tighter than it's been before. We've historically had, really progressive legislators, really moderate legislators, some folks in the middle, some folks who are, actually harmful to our collective interests. And I think that's not what we're seeing right now. And that's why the solidarity is important. Even if there were disagreements amongst some of us here at the end of session, I will stand with my colleagues every day of the week, because I know that in that place, in that building, nothing pro-black moves without the black legislators. And there are only 12 of 120.
Right. We're getting a lot of comments and questions in the chat. I'll do my best to get to those
Sure.
and encompass them. You said a lot of good came out of it. What did you mean by that?
I think anytime you show black power, that's a good thing. The thing we've got to remind folks, though, is that this is the same firepower that would have come had the bills moved as well. Because I think there's also a hidden narrative in there, folks saying, the right wing is definitely amplifying this and playing on this.
Amplifying the conflict.
Correct. Anytime black folks are fighting out in public, that is a kind of the ideal scenario for, a two-party system that has historically been anti-black across the board, but one group or one party more vocal out loud about it, right? That's the dream, is to see black folks fighting amongst themselves.
Well, since you went there, I was going to, save that for next segment, which we will still go deeper. But you said, we saw you getting into it with a particular Republican on the floor.
Yeah.
And that video has gone around, and people said that was you stopping a Republican from bringing the reparations bills to the floor. What's your perception of what happened?
Which is wild. I mean, it's not a perception. To bring a bill to the floor, you don't go anywhere. You raise your mic and you point of order and you make a motion, which also is not common. The Speaker Pro Tem actually goes through the file order. But this particular member had tried that 2 hours prior. At this particular point, when he decided to gaslight me and create that video, he was trying to shut down all of the remaining legislation.
He tried what 2 hours earlier?
He tried to make a motion that wasn't seconded.
To move those 2 bills forward.
Correct.
And why wasn't it seconded?
It wasn't seconded because the Republicans also don't like this member, and so they weren't going to second it. And because we were not going to roll on each other, even me, I'll speak for myself. I did not agree with the strategic decision of the caucus, and my caucus mates know that. But
to not move the bills forward.
Right. I had spoken about it for the previous days leading up to that. I had tried to get other folks to think about not doing that. I was unsuccessful in that effort. And when a collective decision was made, I will stand with that.
So that's why you didn't personally.
That is why I personally didn't second the motion. Also because You cannot second emotion off a person like that. You just can't. The division and the divisiveness and the anti-blackness that will arise from that empowerment from him, which we've already seen in just a few short days, is something we cannot enable, we cannot feed into. And anybody who thinks that's a pathway to where we need to go really needs to continue to engage in Sacramento so you can see this work in real time, not just on these bills, but on anything that has to do with our folks.
So that happened the first time. The second time, when people thought you were blocking him, you're saying he was trying to block the passage of the remaining slate of bills that had nothing to do with reparations.
Exactly. And I was standing in front of the camera, which is a move that's been done many, many times for other people, the chamber camera, because actually all he cares about is he wants to be the Justin Jones and the Justin Pearson of California.
On the right.
Exactly. He's courting white supremacists, and so he's banging on his desk, not for reparations, for something completely different. And everybody in the chamber will tell you that. Every journalist in the chamber will tell you that. Anyone who is in there will tell you he was trying to disrupt the entire process of getting the last 100 bills, some that are huge for our district, from being heard on the floor. The Speaker Pro Tem had ruled him dilatory, which is something I've actually never seen done, which means you are intentionally disrupting the chamber for the purpose of stalling. You will no longer be recognized. That had already happened. So him gaslighting me is only because he knew there was conflict. He knew that I was struggling all afternoon with a decision that had been made that I was going to support and personal feelings that were in conflict with one another, and that I was having a tough time that day balancing those things. And so he exploited that and created this video and then left the chamber. I also saw somebody's like, Isaac threw him out of the chamber. I wish I threw him out the chamber. I should have thrown him out the chamber. He left on his own without even finishing the day's work so he could run and start propagating this. He hopped on Twitter Spaces while we were still voting on the rest of the important legislation that had to get out for community. He went out and created this false narrative, and the only reason I didn't clear it up right away is because I was not going to dive into this when the person who holds me down has always held me down and has patiently been waiting for the happiest day of our life needed me to be present. So I took the time for her, and the second I got back, I reminded folks and people who have propagated that video absent context. That's unfortunate. It's incredibly unfortunate, because if you know even the most basic of floor rules and floor procedures in Sacramento, you know that physically blocking somebody is not even a possible thing. So I feel bad for people who I've respected, like the Mark Lamont Hills and others, who continue to amplify a narrative that he created that has no basis in what was actually happening or what is procedurally allowed on the floor.
When we come forward, we're talking with Assembly Member Isaac Bryan, 55th District, actually my district. And I want to talk about, what's next as far as making sure these things get through. These two bills get through in some form. What are the specific plans? I want to address some of these issues that are coming up here in the chat. And I want to, really make sure we have clarity about what it really means, what it really takes to get something like this across the finish line, address rumors about the money, address rumors about the infighting, the real reasons this thing did not go forward, these two bills. And thank you for showing up and talking it out. Assemblymember Isaac Bryan is with me live in studio. We're on YouTube. We are KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580. Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today.
A Gain Scent Bead story. Jim was at the laundromat when he heard his ear said Maraca, senor, but his nose said, hey, freshest scent ever. Following his nose, Jim found a man pouring a bottle of Gain Scent Beads into the washer. The scent, the freshness. Jim blurted, sir, your scent Maraca smell amazing. Actually, Jim, most noses call them Gain scent beads. Try Gain scent beads. Way fresher than detergent alone.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months, and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community, connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
This is the story of the one. As a facility technician installing a new welding station, he knows getting the ventilation right is critical for safety. That's why when questions arise, there's Grainger. Grainger offers detailed technical product information online at his fingertips, so it's easy to find what he needs. Because when it comes to safety, having answers means he and his people can breathe a little easier. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You've got a Pepto predicament, Beach Bum.
Hey, we're heading down to the beach. You coming?
Yeah, Dad. You coming?
I had a little too much to eat at the resort buffet. I need a minute.
Oh, you overdid it. And now your beach vacation is giving you belly waves. Undo it with Pepto.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Pepto Chewables provide fast 5-symptom relief so you can get back to making memories.
Let's go, Dad!
When you overdo it, undo it with Pepto. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Assembly member Isaac Bryan is with us. I'm over here reading the chat and trying to do the show at the same time because all these inputs are important.
Yeah.
So one of the things, aside from the video of you with your back to the camera that is getting a lot of talk, is this idea that you asked Senator Steve Bradford to apologize to his colleagues. What would he be apologizing for? And did that apology ever happen?
You know, I think whenever you're moving in coalition, there are organizing ground rules. Every community organization I've ever been a part of or built with, there are organizing ground rules. And when we took on reparations as a caucus after the task force finished the report, we had ground rules. And the first one was, we do this together. No one is going to be out on their own, either positive or negative. We are going to do this collectively. We're going to talk about the legislation collectively. If we include it in a collective package, that any changes to the legislation will be talked about collectively, brought collectively. And I think, you know, I love Steve to death, but from the very onset, he did not move that way. And I think that's tough when solidarity has to be maintained in Sacramento and solidarity in community, and then the bridge between both of those. And that's not why, you know, these bills didn't come forward. There were many, many reasons. It had to do with the amendments that were dropped last minute by the governor, the fact that those amendments had been verbally communicated prior to that, but not shared with the caucus. I mean, there were many, the potential veto threats. There was no long-term funding for the Freedmen Affairs Bureau, short-time funding, one-time funding. And so all of these things were stacking on top of each other. But I did think, and I still think, that, you know, had Steve said, you know what, this is bigger than me, this is bigger than us, you know, I'm sorry if there are feels that there are some members who really would have appreciated that. I didn't need that and don't really care. But
it didn't happen.
But it didn't happen.
So, I mean, the perception is that infighting among the, you know, Black Caucus led to us not passing bills that are more important than anybody's, you know, sort of protocol or feelings or, you know.
Yeah, and I would say there were strategic disagreements inside the caucus. There were strategic disagreements outside, and there were structural concerns, legitimate structural concerns by many members of the caucus. No one thing.
Structural concerns as far as the bill itself.
Yeah, absent long-term funding, absent specific legislative oversight that would allow for a different governor or a different person who's not favorable to reparations that could then shift the direction of this agency. There were things to continue to work out.
Right. So the question I'm getting in the chat about that is, if there were these structural concerns, why didn't they come up months ago? Why did they come up right at the end? Like, you know, and if you were ready to support these bills, why are we now hearing that they need to be cleaned up? Like, shouldn't they have been cleaned up before this process, or just voted on, send it to the governor, let him, veto or pass? Bills got cleaned up all the time after they're passed.
No, I think both of those are absolutely true. And I think one of the ways it would have been easier to flag or catch those things is if we were working in solidarity inside and out on the entire package all the way through.
So lack of communication.
Lack of communication. That particular bill wasn't included in the caucus's package because it wasn't brought to the caucus collectively. And so there weren't 12 sets of eyes on it, 12 in terms of structurally making sure it could be as sound and lasting as possible. And so that's the work that we have to do collectively in Sacramento, but it's also the work communities got to do. There are nothing that's hard is easy. I know that's an oxymoron, but nothing that's lasting can be done without folks in deep community. I was really excited to see different organizations that have strategic differences align last night.
Yeah, there sure were.
Right.
At the town hall.
And there are other reparations organizations across the state and others.
That weren't there. Yeah.
And there are conflicts in strategic approaches and design and all of these things there. Black folks are not a monolith. And that's why in these critical big moments, we've got to figure out how we bring each other in together.
But they did pass out a committee, so that indicates a level of support.
Absolutely. Well, and because there were black members on the committee, I was the only black person on appropriations.
But I mean, so if they pass out a committee, how does that happen if they need to be cleaned up?
Well, I think they could have still gone.
Right.
Right. Which is why I thought letting the governor sit on it would have been a good idea personally.
Let him make the decision.
Yeah, but I think for my colleagues, and I don't believe that they're wrong, for folks who are really deeply invested. Which members of the Black Caucus are, and I am too, but there was a bigger field of work happening that I wasn't specifically tuned in to these bills. For some others who really, really were, they felt fundamentally that if we set this up wrong or incomplete, it'll be even harder.
Right. We got news, traffic, and sports right here, and then we'll continue the conversation with Assemblymember Isaac Bryan on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Hunter Biden is skipping a jury trial by pleading guilty in his federal tax case. The president's son pleaded guilty to all counts Thursday, just as a jury was about to be selected. The federal judge in Donald Trump's election interference case says the prosecution can present its evidence before the November election. African-American Judge Tanya Chutkan Thursday granted a proposal by the special counsel's office to make its case about the limits of Trump's immunity by September 26. The father of the suspect in Wednesday's Georgia shooting says he bought the gun as a gift for his son. Colin Gray was arrested and hit with multiple charges, including second-degree murder and manslaughter, after his 14-year-old son shot and killed 4 people and injured 9 others at Appalachia High School. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. I started Blindster in 2010 in my garage after I overpaid for new blinds. I researched the industry, hired my mom, and 14 years later, we're one of the largest retailers of custom blinds in the U.S. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
Is this the tackle? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Today is a monumental day in the career of African-American tennis player Frances Tiafoe. Tiafoe was in the men's semifinals of the U.S. Open in New York City. The 26-year-old native of Hyattsville, Maryland, is one step away from competing for his first Grand Slam championship. Tiafoe will face fellow American Taylor Fritz. It's the first time since 2005 that 2 American men will meet in the U.S. Open semifinals. The match is scheduled for 4 p.m. today. ESPN will have live coverage. For the first time in the 105-year history of the NFL, the league is playing a regular season game in South America. The Green Bay Packers are playing the Philadelphia Eagles today in Sao Paulo, Brazil. 5:15 p.m. kickoff on the Peacock Network. USC is retiring the number 13 jersey worn by former quarterback Caleb Williams and the number 5 jersey worn by former running back Reggie Bush. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So, how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets. 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by J.P. Morgan Chase & Company.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys. Let's take our auntie to the swap meet. Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8% must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
The moment we've all been waiting for has finally arrived. On Tuesday, September 10th at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump will square off in their first ever presidential debate. KBLA Talk 1580 and the Empowerment Congress are hosting a viewing party, and we're inviting you to join us for an evening of civic engagement, great food, and good vibes. Our studio space is limited, but if you would like to join us, just go to our website at KBLA1580.com and register for your chance to watch this historic presidential debate with us. Years from now, we're all likely to remember exactly where we were when this pivotal moment in American politics unfolded. So, register for your chance to join us by going to KBLA1580.com right now. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick. And it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick. Soothing comfort for the whole family. And when you need more comfort for yourself, try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks Vapors.
Use as directed. Vapo Stick for use ages 4 and up. Vapo Shower Max used for adults only.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer whenever I want?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. 94% of Sleep Number smart sleepers report better sleep. J.D. Power ranks Sleep Number #1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses purchased in-store. And now, during our biggest sale of the year, save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Limited time. For J.D. Power 2023 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome back indeed. Assemblymember Isaac Bryan, who represents California's 55th Assembly District, where I happen to live, is on the air with me right now addressing the controversy around the 2 particular reparations bills that were killed for this session and killed by the California Legislative Black Caucus. People feel that as a betrayal. How do we know? What's the guarantee that these bills will come back? And do you think that this decision not to pass them on to the governor's desk was a mistake?
One, they will absolutely come back. That's my guarantee. That's my colleagues' guarantee. We are committed to this work. I'm committed to this work, and they're going to come back either stronger or with greater solidarity inside and out. The ability to clean up any potential problems that may or may not have existed structurally in the language of some of them, and they're going to be continue to be part of the framework that we build on. We've got a lot of work to do. And so they'll be back. They'll be back next session. And, if there's a window for urgency, we would push for that too.
I mean, the governor's has a special session, I think, that he's calling around oil and gas. Could it be put forth in that special session?
No, everything in a special session has to be related to the topic that the governor's put forward. So unless you believe in environmental reparations, which there is a section in the task force, and if you have policy suggestions, shoot them my way. I chair natural resources. I've had suggestions. I've got a bill this year that would pay community benefits to folks who live by the Inglewood oil field. But unless it's related to oil and gas specifically, it can't come up, and only the governor can call a special session.
So you think it was a mistake to not pass the bill at this point? Bills, two of them.
Personally, I do, and I let that be known. But I also think that this is an incredible Black caucus. There are incredible members of this caucus, some who are the first Black representative ever from their area, right? Who are not just moving conversations, but to even talk about reparations and other places. There are parts of my own district, right, that I know Lamert is home to me, the Crenshaw corridor is home to me, but reparations is not by and large, it's not a populist platform, right?
Right, for the majority, for the general.
For the majority of folks who are voting, and even not always for the majority of Black folks, because not everybody was impacted by slavery. In terms of our Black immigrant populations. But that doesn't mean that we can't teach and bring folks in and help folks realize that repair and redress for these harms are, part of our collective pathway to healing and freedom as a country for all people. Censoring what's happened to Black descendants of slaves is in all of our best interest. That's the work we've got to do. And that's what members of the caucus really are doing in their areas and neighborhoods. And so whether this was a strategic mistake or not, we cannot tear down the only institution we have in Sacramento to make a difference. An institution that there are...
You're talking about the California Legislative Black Caucus.
Absolutely. The Black Caucus is our legislative vehicle. It has always and only exclusively been our legislative vehicle to making many transformative changes in our history.
So then what does accountability look like?
I think hold us accountable for a reparations bill package next year that not only are folks proud of, but are willing to do the work to get behind. Hold us accountable to bringing in conversations so that as many folks, even folks who disagree with each other in community, can come together behind a set of shared values, goals, and priorities. Hold us accountable for reintroducing not just these bills, but even taking the ball further. Absolutely do that. I welcome that. We welcome that, and it's what we've got to do together. And it's also whether the bills were going to pass or not. That's the work that many of us were going to do anyway.
I think a lot of people are just also worried about the setback on the national scale because we as California are leading the way on reparations. We have been since being the first one to stand up
Absolutely.
A statewide task force. Do you think the wins that we have had this year are enough to keep that momentum going, and talk about some of those wins?
I think that's where we have to have strategic communications with one another, right? What's a family conversation, and what's a conversation where we invite folks who mean literal harm to our people into? We did send 10 bills related to reparations out of the chamber this year, including removing slavery from our Constitution, which had failed previously. It's on your ballot this year to vote on.
That's Prop 6?
Prop 6, I believe.
Yes on 6. End slavery in California in 2024.
And I know folks believe that many of the bills were low-hanging fruit, right? Because it's not reparations if it's not a check. The challenge is that the report that was given to the legislature, all of the legislature, not just the Black Caucus, has over 100 reparations policy recommendations across 10 different chapters, from environmental justice to policing to housing discrimination, etc. Every one of those bills adhered to either the spirit or the letter of one of those recommendations. And that doesn't mean that folks can't believe they weren't ambitious enough. I actually welcome that conversation. That's why we have to build solidarity, because the caucus's thinking, our thinking, was build momentum, destigmatize the word reparation, which kind of like abolition or any other word like that we claim in community has connotations that are not always under our control. Reclaim the narrative around reparations, get the California state legislature accustomed to voting for legislative priorities, get the governor accustomed to signing legislative priorities, and build on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the conversation when the package of 14 came out. A lot of people, myself included, didn't feel went far enough, and they were saying, okay, this is just the beginning. Some of us felt seize the moment, like this is an open door. We saw that in 2020, the window closed.
That's right. And, I think it's unclear, to some, how big this window was.
Understood.
You know what I mean? We windows often for black folks are created out of crisis. And this is one that was created out of kind of opportunity. And I think that's why it's so painful. And I understand that. I completely understand that. And I'm actually hopeful that this kind of pressure and attention that's been created is in itself a new window. But we've got to walk through that window in solidarity. Otherwise, we will squander that immediately.
I know you guys, meaning the California Legislative Black Caucus, fought really hard to get $12 million set aside for reparations in a budget deficit disaster year. So that was definitely a disaster. Win. But what happens to that money now?
The governor, I believe, ultimately decides it when he writes his January budget and he appropriates it for bill implementation. If there's cost to bills that are sitting on his desk from the package, it will go there.
Could it go into an escrow or some kind of fund that could be, that could be earmarked for reparations so it doesn't disappear or mysteriously get soaked up into projects that aren't reparations related?
Truthfully, I'm not impressed. I'm not actually impressed by the $12 million. And I know like an escrow account or some sort of account because it sounds like a lot of money.
Well, it just sounds like a something.
It sounds like something.
It sounds like a win.
And it is a win. Well, it's
even though it's a tiny amount of money up against reparations.
It could be $1,
right?
But the fact that the state budget says for reparations implementation for the first, like that alone is massive. That there is now precedent for dollars in the budget for reparations implementation. That's huge. But I do think next year we need to come for a whole lot more. And so there's a lot that might need to happen with this $12 million for the bills that are on his. I don't know the cost of the 10 that are on his desk. I don't know if that's even greater than $12 million, and he's going to have to decide whether he signs them all and then appropriates some in the January budget for those bills and then more for what's coming ahead. But getting that money was a huge and hard-fought victory, but it's also not meaningfully significant. It is the start to something much bigger, and I think folks are also underestimating how big of a win that was. There were some huge wins this year. And I think we've got to lean into that and rebuild solidarity and rebuild community because I understand the frustration, the hurt, and I'm sorry for that for folks. I really am because I understand.
Is that an apology?
It's an apology from me, but not because some Republican is acting like I blocked him, which is not true at all.
No,
it's
an
apology.
Right now,
it's an apology
KBLA,
from me because I know the feelings. I feel the feelings, and it's frustrating sometimes to be called to a position of leadership where you have to move with such intentionality, where you understand where community is coming from, but I would never burn my Black Caucus colleagues. They're powerful and important and thoughtful and brilliant, and we're going to build together, and we're going to make the changes that we need to make. And so stepping outside of them, in this moment was never going to be a play that I was going to do. And if we need greater alignment between the caucus and community, then let's build that. And for folks who are not interested in building that, you can't then look at me and tell me that you are serious about this move, because it's never happening without our representation in Sacramento moving with us.
Talking with Assembly member Isaac Bryan. We're talking reparations on a Freedman Friday on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Are you coughing a lot, especially at night? Are you often short of breath? Are you using your rescue inhaler often? These could be signs that your asthma is not under control. To keep your asthma in check and help prevent an asthma attack, ask your healthcare provider for an asthma action plan. This is a personalized plan you create with your doctor that shows you what to do and what medicines to help control your asthma and to use when you're having a hard time breathing or when you're having an asthma attack. Please don't wait until you're having an asthma attack. Do something about it now. Schedule a visit with your healthcare provider today to make that action plan and take control of your asthma. For more tips and resources on the management of asthma, visit luma-edu.com. This message is brought to you by Amgen and AstraZeneca.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Okay, we're talking with Assembly Member Isaac Bryan, who's been kind enough to come into the studio, discuss what's going on with reparations in the state of California. And I had asked you about the wins. We didn't get to all of them. Two that I want to, touch on. One of the bills that this guy Saley was trying to block. Was around the fund for Inglewood.
Yeah.
And which did pass.
Which is interesting. Yeah, it's on the governor's desk right now. And in the Reparations Task Force report, there's a whole section on environmental reparations and harm and infrastructure. And I chair the Natural Resources Committee, so that was a lane for me. And we didn't include this bill in the package because I actually didn't want to bring too much attention to it. I wanted to fight
You wanted it to slide through.
And fight pragmatically, with the same heart and focus that we've always had for the work. But what this bill does is transformative. It calls for the shutdown of the Inglewood oil field, which isn't getting hardly any oil, but it is polluting our air and our water nearby and lowering the life expectancy of all the communities nearby, which are disproportionately black. It calls for a shutdown of that field, but in the meantime, for every low-producing oil well that continues running, we charge you $10,000 a month and put that into a community repair fund that can hold up to $20 million a year, and that money can only be spent within 2.5 miles of the field. That's South LA. That's black community. It can be used for affordable housing. We could use it for a universal basic income. We use it for a lot of stuff, and that was a massive priority. It was in my personal package of bills, the top priority I was working on all year. It didn't get off the assembly floor until 11:45, and had folks continued to be able to obstruct the work inside the chamber, not for reparations, but for the purpose of letting all of the remaining bills fail, that one would not have made it to the governor's desk, along with several others. And so that's something that my community and my district can and should be incredibly proud of.
And just to be clear, because we were talking during the break, the idea that you could actually stand up and physically block a person from a vote on the assembly floor is not a thing.
No, it's.
Why is that not possible?
Because people were getting this idea that you walk up to the front as well and you talk to the speaker. That's also not a thing. In order to be recognized, all you have to do is raise your microphone. If somebody is 2 desks in front of you with their back to you, that has no prevention of you raising your microphone. In that particular case, he wasn't even allowed to raise his microphone anymore because of the stall tactics he had already put in place that had nothing to do with reparations.
Right. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I know that Dems have a supermajority in California. Correct. So, outrageous stall tactics and
super common.
Antics,
and he's done it many, many times. There's a great reporter, Eitan Wallace, who was covering that night for, Fox 11 or somebody. And on Eitan's Twitter, you can see kind of the full moment where he was ruled dilatory, and it had nothing to do with reparations, and he was and everyone was like, we have to finish the business. It was wild. It was kind of unbelievable. It was beyond the dignity of the chamber and what representatives should behave like, and then he just left.
Right. One of the things that I find a little troubling is that I feel like we as black people are much faster to throw other black people under the bus, even when we are disappointed or, unhappy with the results. I do feel like those 2 bills should have been voted up or down. They should have gone to the governor's desk. You've made it clear you feel the same, and it may have been a mistake or was a mistake not to bring them up. That said, this isn't your first rodeo. You've been in the community many years. You've been an activist. How does it feel to have folks not counting the other work you've done?
Yeah, I mean, one, I know many, many, many people are, right? Even being in the room last night, like so much community and family who we've fought and struggled and won with are also around. I told a lot of the folks this. I told folks this at the gate. I told folks this, I signed up for this side of the work. And a lot of people told me, like, you got to have thick skin. And, they love you just enough to hate you. And that's part of why I took the time to get married to my best friend and keep my family whole, right? Because I'm built for this. And
this is the last stop before the honeymoon, by the way.
Yeah,
Thanks for making it KBLA.
Of course.
Because I know a lot of mainstream media has been after you to do this, and now they're going to have to look at the tape from KBLA, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely, because the tape, this is the conversation, and I think over the long run, your body of work will always speak. And so I'm actually not concerned in this moment. My community is going to send me back to Sacramento in November.
Not concerned about people discounting your work is what you mean.
Because,
you don't mean not concerned about reparations.
Oh, absolutely concerned about that. Clear about that. Not concerned about people who, want to get personal with something that's nuanced and complicated and that there were strategic disagreements on.
What ought we be reading, watching, or paying attention to better understand the way? I mean, I think the anger is forcing people to go up more and see for ourselves, which is good. But what else should we be looking at or reading?
I think, I think the caucus, the Black Caucus and community have got to build deeper solidarity.
No doubt. I mean, the caucus, in my opinion, should have had a more direct and transparent communication strategy. If they decided that was the move, then what's next? And why aren't you telling us? Why are we finding this out as a betrayal at the last minute? That's a problem.
Many, many, many lessons to learn. Couldn't agree more. And I think we're going to build that tightness. But I think our communication, our support, our upliftment, our push, our pressure has all got to come and be generated in the same direction towards liberation and reparations. That is how we channel this into something positive. And so, I just want to be clear when I said that, I'm not concerned about myself, because I know every year I introduce important legislation for our people, for our community, and in line with the repertory values that I hold. And so next year I will have another package, and there will be people who got things to say today that will struggle to find something bad to say then, and it's okay, because I love my people. I love my people whether they love me or not. And I think over the lifetime of this career and work, whether it's in office or back when I was organizing or back when I was at the university, wherever I am, I'm going to do what I can to advance our work. And I think, my hope is that by the time that I leave this earth, that there are the kind of structural changes that will allow us to live our free, full, healthy, and thriving lives that we've always deserved. And so this is going to come and go, but the work has to remain and stay constant. And that's my commitment. And that's why I'm always going to show up. And that's why these conversations are important. I love the call out, call in, folks. That, I think there are lessons to learn about that part of this as well. There's lessons for the caucus. There's lessons for us to think through what does it mean to bring folks together and make changes even when it's very, very hard.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming in. I know you can't, the next year is a ways away, and you've said this, but I just want to land on this. SB 1403 and SB 1331.
I have no doubt that they will be back. None at all.
Okay.
And many more.
Assemblymember Isaac Bryan, thank you so much for stopping by, and thank you for making it Black-owned media when you decided to speak.
Of course.
And have a great honeymoon. Thanks to your new wife for loaning the community you for the past, 12 hours or so.
For years at this point.
Yeah, that part. It is time for the best of Tavis Smiley. And look, if you got something to say, join me Monday or join me on social media, because the conversation continues. History is now, and we are making it together. I'm Dominique DiPrima. Until Monday, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Hunter Biden is skipping a jury trial by pleading guilty in his federal tax case. The president's son pleaded guilty to all counts Thursday, just as a jury was about to be selected. The federal judge in Donald Trump's election interference case says the prosecution can present its evidence before the November election. African-American Judge Tanya Chutkan Thursday granted a proposal by the special counsel's office to make its case about the limits of Trump's immunity by September 26. The father of the suspect in Wednesday's Georgia shooting says he bought the gun as a gift for his son. Colin Gray was arrested and hit with multiple charges, including second-degree murder and manslaughter, after his 14-year-old son shot and killed 4 people and injured 9 others at Appalachia High School. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. I started Blindster in 2010 in my garage after I overpaid for new blinds. I researched the industry, hired my mom, and 14 years later, we're one of the largest retailers of custom blinds in the U.S. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.